Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who got trolled by his son yesterday. You see, I was listening to The King's Disease 3 by Nas, and, I was listening in the kitchen. I was making some mashed potatoes for the family, and he goes, "Dad, this is good. Why do you hate Nas so much?" And I was like, "I don't hate... But he was kidding, because he knows. He knows that Nas fans have beef with me. And let's be honest, I have beef with Nas fans. They're never happy. Look, I said his name right. I said Nas and not Nas. I say Nas because I think of the name Nasir, and I think of the name in Arabic, but that's okay. No problem. I didn't realize when I was accidentally picking a fight with Nas fans that I was actually entering into a long-standing debate in hip-hop. I didn't know that I was sort of jumping on the wrong side of history. Like, it turns out that there's like a whole bunch of rap fans who dislike Nas because he's too conscious or because they think he's preachy, which I have no problem with. My problem was, when I came into the game, when I really started paying attention to Nas, it was with the album I Am. I was aware of him before, but I heard the song I Am. I thought it was cool. I thought it was well written. And so I bought that album, and then I ended up sort of like backwards engineering the rest of his catalog. That's how I came up with my unintentionally provocative theory that Illmatic is overrated and It Was Written is underrated. For that matter, I think that I Am is underrated. But the thing is that, when I was coming up, like when I first really started paying attention to Nas, it was around the time that he released the song Hate Me Now. So whenever people come at me like, "Sky, did you know that when you're saying that Jay-Z is better than Nas, you're really saying that you're anti-conscious rap, that you're for co-opted black entertainers who kowtow to the white superstructure?" I just think of him dancing around with Puffy in front of a bunch of flames. So that was sort of like where I came in. Now, I also need to just remind everybody who thinks that I'm a Nas hater, I consider Made You Look to perhaps be the greatest song in rap history. I think it is a message-level song in terms of its production, in terms of its rapping. That's how good I think that song is. But in general, my issue with Nas has been, and I own maybe 5 or 6 of his albums, has just been that he has failed to sort of move me in a certain way that other rappers do. And it's not because he's too conscious. It's not because he's not conscious enough. I actually like Hate Me Now. I think it's a fine song. The word that was sort of popping in my head before the word even existed was I just sort of felt kind of mid. Not that he was mid, but that he is. I don't edit, so you have to hear me go, it's. It left me in a state where I just was unmoved. And so when I did reviews of King's Disease 1, King's Disease 2, Magic, and now King's Disease 3, like, Nas fans hated me for questioning his greatness. And then, with my Magic review, where I finally say, you know what, this is great. I've been wrong. Nas really is that great. Nas fans got even more mad at me. They got more mad at me for admitting his greatness than they did for me questioning his greatness. The only other group of fans that are more butthurt than Nas fans are Bob Dylan fans, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I do think that Nas is a Bob Dylan level rap artist, okay? And much like Bob Dylan, if you so much as say one bad word about him, they don't like it. So when I was going to review this album, I was thinking about my framing device. Because, it's his 4th album, in 2 years? So how do you come up with something new to say about these projects that have the same producer and the same rapper? Well, I realized what it is. And what it is even though I was blissfully unaware of the nature of the Jay-Z and Nas debate, I knew that it was a debate. I didn't understand that it was framed in black consciousness, or else I never would have weighed in at all. But as far as I understood, it made sense that these were the 2 highest profile rappers who were successful and also lyrical geniuses. So that's also probably just part of it. Even though I wasn't on the blogs or whatever, I wasn't in the hip-hop circles, I just sort of knew that it was sort of a Beatles and Stones thing. You can like them both, but you sort of end up preferring one. So, I was there. I was there for the beef. I remember hearing the song Takeover, and wow, he really took him out. And so when I'm thinking about the framing device for this album, and you can tell from the thumbnail, it's the question of, did Nas win? Did he actually win this beef? Now, they settled the beef. on that song Black Republicans, they work together. They're now, they're old guys. What are they going to do? Slap each other? That wasn't meant to be a Will Smith joke. I'm sorry. But that really wasn't. Okay, here's where I wish I could edit, because that sounds like I'm making a Will Smith joke. But Nas and Jay-Z aren't going to go at each other. But there is the most famous line so far from this album where Nas discusses their beef. No beefs or rivals, they're playing Ether on Tidal. Brothers can do anything when they decide to. And Ether on Tidal, of course, Tidal is a streaming service that was started by Jay-Z, so you can listen to the song Ether that is dissing Jay-Z. Pretty funny. That's why I listen to music on Tidal, by the way. It's because of its beginnings with Jay-Z and Kanye. Yay. Brothers can do anything when they decide to. In a Range Rover, dissecting bars from Takeover. Sometimes I text Hova like, this ain't over. Laughing. I don't think this is innocent. I don't think he's being cute. I don't think he's being funny. I think he's being serious. I think this whole thing, this whole Hit Boy project, is Nas winning the debate. Because I think at their peak, in my opinion, at their peak, Jay-Z head and shoulders above Nas. Okay, in his peak years. That's my opinion. You can disagree. That's fine. You can put a thumbs down and call me a hater. You know what you can even do? You can find me and debate me. You can find me and debate me at the Madison Square Garden. I spent an hour on Ticketmaster. Terrible website. I bought these tickets 10 times and they kept saying, sorry, we have a mistake. It's not you, it's us, trying to be cute. But I'm going to go see Nas at Madison Square Garden, okay? I'm going to be up at section 304. You come find me, all right? You say, let me tell you why Jay-Z is better, and we will hang out together listening to The King's Disease 3 albums being played at Madison Square Garden. I don't even know how I'm going to get there. I live 8 hours away from New York. But you think I'm going to miss like this moment in rap history? You think I'm going to miss seeing Nas perform all these great songs? So when I tell you that I think Jay-Z in his prime is better than Nas, that's what I mean. But amazingly enough, that is not disrespecting to Nas. I was thinking of sports and sports metaphors. And I think when you have an artist whose peak is great versus another artist whose longevity is great, there's some good examples I think that we can pair. I mean, the one that's most often done in football is, Joe Montana versus Tom Brady, but that's just not even fair. There's no metric by which you cannot say Tom Brady is a better quarterback. In a similar way, I could go basketball with MJ and LeBron, which has the added element of, MJ having Michael Jordan having a shorter career, LeBron having a longer career with longer sustained dominance, and in particular, Michael Jordan being seen as apolitical because Republicans buy Nikes too, with Jay-Z being seen as non-political, even though he supports political candidates all the time. Anyways. And then you have LeBron. I think that's a pretty good comparison with Nas and his more political side. But I'm not going to do that either, because I don't think it's fair to say that anybody is on the non-Michael Jordan side of a sports debate. You're going to lose. So I'm going to go to baseball. I'm from Boston originally, which some of you are going to be like, oh, that makes sense. It does. It's okay. And Pedro Martinez is one of my favorite pitchers of all time. He was an absolutely dominant pitcher for much of his career. He pitched for 17 seasons. Another pitcher, Justin Verlander, just won the World Series a couple weeks ago, is most likely going to win the Cy Young. He is in his 17th year. And I think if we compare these pitchers, I think it actually kind of works the way comparing Jay-Z to Nas would work, with Jay-Z being Pedro Martinez and Nas being Justin Verlander. In the 17 years that they both pitched up until now, Pedro won 3 Cy Youngs, and Verlander won 3 Cy Youngs. He's going to win this one this year. Verlander won 1 MVP. Pedro won 5 ERA titles. Verlander only won 2. Pedro won 6 titles of WHIP. Verlander only won 4. Verlander won more strikeouts. But when you talk about it with people, and I talked about this with some of my baseball friends, what they talk about is like, yeah, but you can't, Pedro was so dominant. He shifted the game. Every single team had to figure out what they were going to do with him. When he was on, nobody was even close to him. And he was pitching in such a more competitive era. His competition was so much greater against the greats. And really that's what it boils down to. Is Justin Verlander, just by stats, he really is like Nas. Like, he had surgery, he's like 39 years old, and he came back and is pitching better than ever. What Nas is doing is that impressive. It is unbelievable that somebody can be 30 years into their rap career making rap music this vital and this good in this quantity. That's the thing. All the young guys are releasing albums every 2 weeks. Whatever, that's what they do. They're young, you know? But what he's able to do with Hit Boy has this same thing where if you're speaking realistically, who had a better career? It's Justin Verlander. Who has a better career? It's Nas. I don't want to say either of those things. Because I still love Pedro. I still prefer Jay-Z. But realistically, with this unheard of 4-album run where every single track, with the exception of like 1 or 2, are great, where his pen, Jay-Z talks about being young all the time, but he's retired. Where are you, Jay-Z? Come out and play, yay. Tink, tink, tink. He's calling you out, Jay. Get out there. Get Premier. Get Just Blaze. I don't care. Get Conductor Williams. Get out there. Defend your crown for this. Do you know how great this could be? Do you know how great we could have it right now? If Jay-Z heard this and he heard what Nas was really saying, which was, it ain't over because I just schooled you, Jay. Queens is on top. Brooklyn is underneath. I am going to go play Madison Square Garden. Meanwhile, you're going to be in the luxury seats of Barclays pretending like that's better. I love it. Part of hip-hop is competitive. It's part of the art. It is unlike any other art where competition is part of it. Being good and being rich is actually part of your success. So it's very complicated and very interesting. And I think this album, King's Disease 3, this is the 2022 World Series. He's just showing that he can do it. Now, of course, part of the reason that he can do it is because he's working with Hit Boy, who is also making his pitch to be in that top 5 producers in rap history. He really is a lot like Nas in the way where he has a lot of songs that totally stand out and are completely remarkable, but he also has just a baseline of quality, which can be boring to some, but when you really appreciate the art, like you pay attention the same way that Nas will sometimes switch up his flow in a song that you think is boring, or he'll have some kind of simile or some kind of metaphor, or some kind of reference that just like kind of knocks you off. You just go, oh, like I'm like almost every song, Hit Boy manages to develop a beat just a little bit, take out one part, add in another, just take out the drums, add extra percussion, add extra synthesizers. Each song is like so well crafted, and it's not overcrafted. He's not trying to do too much. It's this perfect marriage between Nas and Hit Boy, and that's what we have here. At a certain point, he compares, and I'm going to talk about this very soon, he compares them to Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones. I think actually we should compare this to Eric B. and Rakim. I think that's what it's like. It's just like a master beat producer and a master rapper working together. Now, when it comes to the themes of this album, again, I'm trying to figure out how do I talk about this when thematically it's not that different from the rest of the King's Disease and Magic project. What should we call Magic? King's Disease 2.5? Also, like, I had a hard time getting behind this because he's talking about gout. And, like, my dad had gout. Isn't it gross? I mean, it's very uncomfortable. It's not gross because, it does look unpleasant. But it's a very tough thing to have. It's like looking at people's like swollen ankles and feet. Whenever he says King's Disease, I think of like my dad's swollen ankles and him being in pain and having trouble walking. Like, I don't think it was like this like cool reference, He's sort of like, this is my new album, Venereal Sores. All right, kick it, This is my new album, Infested Wound. But when I think about what makes Nas an interesting rapper, and I'm trying to think of it a different way, I think what he's able to do better than any other rapper is rap in 3 times. He's able to rap about yesterday, today, and tomorrow. When he's rapping about yesterday, he's talking about the things that shaped him, He's talking about his history, about growing up, about hip hop history. It's funny because at a certain point he says, I don't like to reminisce. It's like, dude, you like to reminisce. Like, you have been reminiscing, like, that's your thing. Like, you don't like reminiscing? I mean, that's like Jay-Z saying, I don't like to talk about money. I don't like to talk about Manhattan real estate. Okay. So that's the yesterday. And then there's the today, which is the mode that most rappers stay in, which is just different ways of saying I'm the best rapper, right? Just I'm great, I'm the best, okay? And then there's the tomorrow, where he's preaching to the future generations, where he takes on the prophet role. I think a lot of your opinions of Nas are hinged on how you feel about his tomorrow mode. I mean, I just told you, it was the song I Am. Or is it I Can? What's the song? You know, the one that's based on... Yeah, it's called I Am, isn't it? Yeah, sorry. Because it's I Can Be What I Want to Be. I haven't heard the song in a little while. The point is, a lot of how you feel about... Ooh, I just gave some fuel to the Nas heads. What do Nas fans call themselves? Nas heads? Nas-ees? Not that. Nasites? Esco brothers? The Esco brothers. The Esco brothers are going to come after me for not remembering what the name of the song was. But the tomorrow mode. I think how you feel about Nas depends on how you feel about the tomorrow mode. Because it can be preachy and annoying. And sometimes you listen and you're like, dude, who are you even telling? You're telling people not to shoot. But who? Who, realistically... Okay, realistically, when I go to Madison Square Garden, okay, how many people that are in that concert have held a gun with the intention of shooting somebody in the last year, right? I mean, obviously, hip-hop has a very strong influence and role in in America, and there are some criminals who listen to hip-hop music, There's some people who shoot at people who listen to hip-hop music, but they're not listening to Nas. I don't think. So it's kind of this weird sort of like, what are you preaching? Who are you preaching to? The thing that he does different is, and on this project it's very clear, he takes it to a different level. He doesn't just rap about his wisdom. He doesn't just try to like teach the truth to the young black youth, as Wu-Tang once said. He's trying to like give larger statements on life and mortality. Again, I compared him to Dylan. I think that's how. Like every Dylan album for the past 20 years has been about whether or not he's going to die or how he's going to die. Seriously, like the dude is having a long retirement tour. And it actually feels a little bit like this on this album, where Nas is really coming to terms with his age. This album totally gets better as you listen. I'm going to give you my ranking of the Hit Boy Nas albums at the end of this, if I remember. But definitely this was near the bottom and it's near the top now because the details of production, like little examples, like there's a song Legit, there's just like a little, just Hit Boy just throws this little bass line on before a little spoken word part. Just that little bass line, it's just that, or like on the first song, there's like, Nas like changes his flow, like just in the middle of a song, he like starts attacking. Like the beginning of the first verse, he has this sort of attacking flow, and then he kind of slows down. It's like he changes gear. Like you can actually imagine a little race car driver in Nas's brain, and he's rapping, and he's in sixth gear, and then he sees the corner, and he goes down to fifth to make the turn. Does that work as a metaphor? Let me give you a stamp. An example song, click above the banana, above the banana, above the bananas, above my shoulder, for the song Michael and Quincy, which I've already mentioned previously. I find it interesting here. He starts off with a false start, which I think is just showing Ye's influence on hip-hop still. The idea of like starting off like... And then Hit Boy is just... This is one of the songs where you could easily forget. Like you could easily overlook what Hit Boy's doing here as this beat develops with these little guitar lines. And these like slightly altered boots and cats drums. And then like as the verse starts, it expands. The beat expands. And then at a certain point, it drops out and it's just the bass and the drum line. And then at the very end, to emphasize the idea of Quincy Jones, who was a trumpetist, a trumpeter, a trumpetometer, like there's a trumpet that plays as well. And it's just like, all the way throughout, Hit Boy is carefully monitoring what Nas is doing. And he's adjusting how much is behind him depending on what mode Nas is in. And when you listen to it, it's really special. It's like a guitarist who knows how to play with certain emphasis while a singer is singing. There's a musicality to Hit Boy's production, which you don't always hear in even the best hip-hop production. There's a sensitivity to his rapper, which is just great. Lyrically, this has a mixture of the sort of today and tomorrow. So, it starts off with kind of a tomorrow verse where he talks about America as a baby, sort of preaching, Jeepers Creepers, America's a baby that's teething, shitting on itself, crying for its next feeding. As odd as it gets, it's not even a toddler yet. Gang members got nothing on these congressmen. It's great. I mean, look at what Nas can do. Because let's look at the best, at the best verse from a Jay-Z album in the last year. I'm done. He doesn't have one. Jeepers Creepers, America's a baby that's teething, shitting on itself, crying for its next feeding. Evocative, interesting. And then we get to this Michael verse. And this is the thing, he's just playing. He's just thinking of this idea and he's executing it. And it's like, depending on how well you know Michael Jackson's oeuvre and life, the more that you appreciate this verse. I'm activated, my hair might spark flames. He's talking about hair activation because Michael Jackson's hair caught on fire during a Pepsi commercial. So my hair might spark flames, aviator frames, which are the kind that he wore, bandages, laminates, a stage. After he got burned, he wore these bandages with aviator frames from a stretcher I waved, which is what Michael Jackson did. Even if I had 2 arms full of Grammys, which Michael Jackson did, or a sponsor from Pepsi, I'd still be honorary, like Quincy on the trumpet, Hit Boy on the drum kit. Nasty like Mike on the vocals, I overdub it. And then he just throws on a Chamon, which shows a little bit of humor here. In general, one of my issues with Nas is he's just not that funny. He doesn't seem to have a sense of humor about himself, but here he does a little bit. Bouncing off the wall, always starting something. So he's talking about Off the Wall, which is an album which features the song Gotta Be Starting Something. Behind the scenes, the Thriller video, big budgets, Moonwalking, Smooth Criminal, talking, I'm changing colors right now till I'm dark skinned. This weird sort of like reverse of Michael Jackson, whose skin got lighter through surgery or through some disease. I don't know. Annie, are you okay? Watch me transforming. So he's like, now he's talking about like Thriller. He's turning into I think he's both turning into the werewolf while talking to Annie. Pinky ring glitter like the socks and the glove. Knew some money getting thugs that could buy the Beatles pub. So this is going back to Michael Jackson deserves a lot of credit for a lot of things, but buying the Beatles publishing is an amazing, that is such he didn't do it as an act of hey, let's have African Americans reclaim the art that had been stolen from them by pen and by guitar for the past 50 years. But that's what he did, rock and roll from every crooked manager and crooked label boss, and then getting appropriated and changed and perfected. Let's be honest, rock and roll was perfected in England by the Beatles. All right, so Chuck Berry is great, but he never could have made Revolver, okay? But still, it was stolen from them, and the money was stolen from them. And Michael Jackson buying the rights right here, that's what I really call Cop and White in Re-Up. Just very funny. At the end, it sort of gets almost like a backwardsy sound and kind of drillish. It's the whole thing. It's just such a well-produced, well-thought-out, well-executed rap song. I'm going to go through the rest of the album a little bit quicker. It opens up with a song called Ghetto Reporter, which at some point has him say, just applaud this, and I'm applauding it, right? That's what I'm doing. That's what this video is. I am somehow known as a Nas hater who loves Nas. So I like that he starts off with Richard Pryor, because he quoted Richard Pryor on his 2018 project, Nasir, the one produced by Ye. And that was for Cop Shot the Kid. And it was very meaningful and very political. And this is sort of a continuation of that, talking about I went down to the jail and I saw Just Us. That's what justice is. And what I love is he starts off with saying, it's comedy, it's hilarious. So he's talking about the seriousness of the situation by saying it's hilarious in a very serious tone. Sort of interesting dark humor. They'd argue KD1, KD2 are magic. What's harder when KD3 go harder than all of them? Do I agree? Stay tuned to the end to find out. here's some interesting talk about like the divide between artists and executives. Going back to that Michael Jackson point, which we're starting to see a lot more people talking about the power that executives have and the money that executives have. I love how the beat kind of falls out of rhythm at the end, and then there's this like little gospel interlude, and so that song that was all about today, sort of about how great he is, leads into Legit, which can I tell you the thing I hate most about Nas? Two syllables, 2 words, maybe 1 word. Brave hearts. Corny. Brave hearts. I don't know what he means by it. He's been saying it for 20 years, 25 years. It's just, it makes me think of this goofy character from the cartoon Dungeons and Dragons whose name was Braveheart. Or it makes me think of Mel Gibson. You know what I mean? Just Bravehearts. It makes me think of Care Bears. That's what it makes me think of. It makes me think of Care Bears. I'm Braveheart. Just, I don't know. Of all the like weird sort of like side things that he says. Like I like Esco, that's great. Anyways. But I really love this beat with this sort of like ooh and ah and audience voice. And he says Black is Black Panther 3, which came out the same day the album released. That's kind of fun. A really great beat change by Hit Boy with this piano and these super hard drums. It's funny because he uses the word legit, and he says too legit at some point. But if you say too legit to someone who grew up at the same time as we did, because I'm roughly the same age as Nas, all you think of is Hammer is too legit to quit. And then we had that great moment I mentioned before with the bass where he says, I ain't forget about the roaches and the mice. That's that yesterday moment. So most of the song is all about this today, I'm so great, and then we get to the yesterday thoughts of I don't forget where I came from. Then we get to the song Ton, which according to Genius is a Queen's pronunciation of the word sun, which is cool. He sort of lost a chance to call it God's Ton because, he had God's Son. It's one of his albums, one of the albums that I own. The great Nas Hater bought on CD. I love this song. Partly because he starts off just saying no doubt, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt. And just, I love the expression no doubt. I like saying it. No doubt. I like the crazy strings, like the weird, like these weird samples. Queen's in the house, very old school. This is a very yesterday kind of song, thinking about the back, remembering the old days of hip hop. We have the famous weird quote, a sample of UFO by ESG, a song which was, I believe, first used by the Force MCs in 1982, but popularized in Night of the Bassheads by Public Enemy. Been used forever. It's just the basic horror sound in hip hop, and I just love it because that comes right after he says, I feel the heart, I feel the beat break. And then we hear that sound. And like, that's a famous beat break in history. And he's talking about how he remembers the subway, even though he hasn't read it. And he's just like flowing so hard. And that's why, when he gets into this whole Jay, it ain't over thing, I think he's really trying to start it up again. And I hope he does. Then he has a... Sorry. Is this really... Sorry, I don't have a script. I have notes. Ah, yes, good. I almost skipped a page. Then we get to the stamp. Michael and Quincy. Then we get to the song 30. A full-on yesterday thing. And in general, I don't like too much of talking about how great you were. I talk a lot about how much I love Biz Markie, and the problem with like an album like Weekend Warrior, which was, I believe, his final official release, is so much of it was looking back at how great he was and what he did, and so much of it was like, I'm the Bismarck. It's like, I know you're the Bismarck. I know you're the 1-2, but like, just move on. Let's have more songs like Chinese Food, So I was afraid when I saw this. But it really is, the beat is not super engaging. This is one of Hit Boy's weaker beats, I think, on here. It changes nicely, but it's kind of warbled, kind of trappy. But the fact that he's been around 30 summers and that he's at this level does legitimately make him... He is alone. He's alone. There's nobody else 30 years into their hip-hop career making music this consistently and this good at this high of a level. They're just not there. LL couldn't do it. Kool Moe Dee couldn't do it. Wu-Tang can't do it. Biggie and Pac were removed from being able to do it, and Jay-Z chooses not to. So it's worth pointing out. This is something to actually flex about. Going on 30 summers, we've been moving how you effins wanna, my 30 for 30 highlights doing numbers. This is where he has a sort of a call on Pete Rock, who I guess, feels that he was robbed for some of the publishing on Illmatic. I don't know, but what I like is he says a premiere album might happen. And here's my pitch, okay? Here's my pitch. This is my pitch to Nas and Jay-Z, okay? You have to excuse me, my wife is changing my baby's diaper upstairs. That's the sound. Smash the like bucket if that doesn't bother you. And smash the unlike bucket if it does. DJ Premier, give him $10 million. 5 from Jay, 5 from Nas. He gives them each the same beats. They are given 2 months. 2 months to come out with albums on the same day. Announce that, okay? Jay, I want you to come out of Madison Square Garden. I want you to announce that that's what you're doing. Because I'm telling you, that would set the world on fire. If Nas and Jay had the same premiere beats and had to see what they had to do, wouldn't you love it? Wouldn't you love to see these masters in? Because that's the thing. Hip-hop artists don't get worse. They just get ignored, okay? That's the problem with it being such a young man's game. We're just finally hitting this point where people can be around for 30 years. Tell me in the comments, is this not the best idea you've ever heard? Okay? 12 tracks by Premier. Bam. I just thought of that this morning. I thought it was super exciting. And I'm calling it. Nas would not win. Jeez, he would kill him. If he felt that challenged, if he felt cornered, that'd be awesome. Stop counting your money. Start spitting. All right. Next song is called Hood to Hood. The middle of the album, if I had to say one problem with the album, the middle of the album is not that great. Like Hood to Hood's okay. It's kind of electronic, which is nice. I like especially the way Hit Boy adds these tinkling synthesizers in the chorus. But it's sort of, I don't know, it's a little bit too yesterday, a little bit too much like how we used to be, how things used to be. Just hood to hood. I mean, it's a little bit catchy. And then it's interesting because, obviously we're having this whole conversation about anti-Semitism, which I spoke at length in my West Side Gun review last week. But what I find interesting here is, your ears go up and whenever you hear anybody talk about Jewish brothers, you're like, "Rrr." But listen to the way he actually phrases it, because I think this is actually at the source of a lot of anti-Semitism in non-white communities, okay? So anti-Semitism coming from white communities is an effort to enforce white supremacy, okay? If we maidens, why we all beefin'? When the Jewish brothers be chillin', Shabbat Friday evening. So he's not saying that they control or that they exclude. He's simply talking about something which I noticed. I'm going to go see Nas at Madison Square Garden, and when I go, I have a friend who lives in Queens, who's Jewish, and he's like one of my best friends. And I go see him, and I'm not even going to invite him to the concert. He can't go. He and his family hang out on Friday evening, and I come from the oppressor class. I come from the most white privilege you can possibly have. But I see them together on Friday, and it makes my heart break. I'm like, how did they figure... Me and all my waspy power, all my civilization came up with is figuring out how to have more screens to be in different rooms further away from each other, not spending time together. This is like the greatest tradition on earth. It's so smart for creating familial cohesion and community growth. And, it makes sense that some people might see that and that might turn to jealousy, and jealousy might turn to hate. But this is just simple observation. This is Nas saying what I said the first time I hung out with my friend during Shabbos, where it's just like, I am absolutely green with envy. I am completely in awe of this cultural tradition. This is one of the best things I have seen in a long time. That's how I felt. And then he goes further. Even in jail, I hear Latins got each other's back. Not us. We jump each other for the phone when it comes to black. So this whole idea of, again, this is maybe some more of the tomorrow thinking, right? So he's trying to better his community. And then just ends with just shouting out every hood in the world. Just shouting out That used to happen a lot, where songs would end with people being like, I gotta give it up to Detroit, I gotta give it up to DC, I gotta give it up to Harlem, I gotta give it to Staten Island, I gotta give it out to Compton, I gotta give it out to Miami, I got Atlanta holding it down. It has kind of one of those things, which feels like it's a comment on that more than it is being that. Next song is Recession Proof, which is, I say, a Yesterday song with a Tomorrow chorus. Great, amazing beat. One of Hit Boy's best beats here. Low bass and guitar with a wah-wah, later some swirling sounds. Sort of ominous. He refers to himself as Superfly or Superman, which I like this as an example. And then he just sort of paints this whole picture of himself as a kid. Imagine trying to sleep as a kid. I grew up around weed smoke, just like the Marleys. Heard my mom whenever she spoke. They having parties. This is the 70s, of course. Donna Summer's voice. Me, I'm in some holy but clean undershorts in the bed trying somersaults. And when the summer starts, you hear 100 shots stepping over empty liquor bottles I come across. Give me a second. I have a point here. I meant to get a book. I meant to get a book out and have it ready here. Now, if I can find that book, I would be all set. But I'm not seeing it. So this is, I got it. Sweet. So people often talk to me about, what are the best books you've ever read? This is one of the best books I've ever read. Okay. Du côté de chez Swann by Proust. Okay. Swann's Way in English. It doesn't translate super well. But the book opens up with this famous first chapter. Okay. Longtemps je me suis couché de bonne heure. So it's talking about, the whole thing begins with him describing his youth. And the thing that Proust is describing in his youth is the feeling of having your parents having a party and feeling like you're upstairs. And in the book, like, he fabricates like an asthma attack, and he has his wife come up to give him a kiss, and the dad wants him to be tougher. So the dad tells him, don't kiss him, and then finally the dad just gives up. And this is the moment when the kid was a child that the dad literally gives up on his son not being a disappointment, like when he's a little child, like getting this kiss before bed to interrupt this party. This right here is that. Imagine trying to sleep as a child who grew up around weed smoke. He's painting this picture of a kid in some holy but clean undershorts. Holy but clean. Holy meaning they're poor. Clean meaning that they're full of pride and that they take care of themselves, right? Holy but clean undershorts. These are the kinds of details that great authors like Proust or Flaubert or whoever are able to imbue into their stories where things mean something. Holy but clean undershorts. Maybe Nas really is the best. Damn it. If he keeps doing this, I'm eventually going to have to give up. But we'll see. Like King's Disease 78, I'll be like, fine, he's better than Jay-Z. But clean but holy undershorts trying somersaults. So like you picture him up there and he's doing somersaults, and the summer starts, he really is able to paint this picture of his life as a kid. It's an amazingly powerful, well-written little verse. Also, not for nothing, if you like this, check out the album Church by Billy Woods, who has a very similar style of thinking about the past and writing about his childhood and growing up around sort of drugs in the hood. It's quite good. And then he has a chorus that's just all like the Tomorrow chorus. It's the prophet Nas. Invest in you, that's what's best to do. Consuming poison, somebody bless the food. Who you trying to impress, what's there left to prove? Props to Nas for being one of the few anti-drug rappers. I really do appreciate that. Well, like here's this leads directly into the hard drum beats of the song Reminisce, kind of a gentle beat with a pitched voice samples. He talks a lot about, I didn't have to die so they could call me the great one. Didn't take a couple albums. People said it from day one. Which is great, because that's true. That's part of what makes Nas an interesting guy, is he had a largely acclaimed masterpiece as his first album. And a lot of people who have what is considered to be their best work, their first work, a precocious work of genius, are often ultimately unable to repeat that and then basically fall apart. Take, for example, Orson Welles with Citizen Kane. Makes the greatest movie of all time at like 24 years old, given full control. And then he makes a lot of great movies. Touch of Evil, Mr. Arcade, there's a lot of great movies by Orson Welles. But there's not a second Citizen Kane. I really like here how he says, never knew I'd soon relate to Tom Brady going for 7 in Tampa Bay. That's that athlete metaphor that I'm thinking of. Like athletes who are still doing it and you can't believe they still are. He says, I don't like to reminisce. I've already clowned on him for that. Then we get to the song Serious Interlude. Then we get to the song I'm on Fire. That's all I'm going to say, okay? A song about how we've all been through this. We've all been in relationships with unfaithful people and cheating. Whatever. Get your singers out of here. Did you bring in Hit Boy for this? Did you bring in Hit Boy to have some song? Something I'll go through. I go back to my previous review of this song. On to the next song, I'm on Fire. I didn't expect a Bruce Springsteen cover on this album. Yet, that's what we got. Patented Professor Sky joke. It's not a Bruce Springsteen cover. Great cut-up beat. Another one of Hit Boy's best beats. The strings are all over the place. The vocals are like kind of like ethereal. I would actually put forth that this song is avant-garde. That this song is actually like alternative hip-hop in its production. The way this voice just keeps saying, I'm on fire. And then he makes reference to the Hate Me Now video, which I previously referenced. And then later he references the He's on Fire from NBA Jam, which again, he's not afraid of showing his age. Because if you know NBA Jam, it means that you're over the age of 35 at least. An amazing video game. I think he also samples Yoga Fire from Street Fighter, but I could just be getting my Capcoms mixed up. What's that? Midway. It's Midway. It's not the same thing. Sorry. Anyways, it's a really great song. I think Nas is kind of outshined by Hit Boy on here. Next song is called WTF SMH. Another great killer song. The crazy awesome chopped up beat. More weird vocalizers. Really, what's happening here is it seems that there's these little like sections that go together. Like these songs go together with the way they're produced. WTF, SMH, OMG, how could you put these PA rappers over me? All they do is cap, all they do is LIE, MLFMAO, ESCO, heavy in the streets. Just funny, just funny, well done. And that's what I'm sure all of the ESCO brothers are saying to me. Well, actually, I'm sure there was a lot of ESCO sisters, so I can't call them the ESCO brothers. What shall we call Nas fans? Naserites? The Nas's likers? Nas's likers. We'll call them that. Next song is Once a Man, Twice a Child. And this is what I'm talking about with Nas going beyond the usual thing that people usually do when they talk about getting old. This is a great song about being old. There's like a Steve Lacy style guitar on here, added on some kind of West Coast whiny keyboards, some saxophone at the end as well. This is all very matching to the nature of the song, the wistful nature of the song. And he's really using his age to his advantage. And that's the thing, part of the problem with Jay-Z is he keeps on talking about being young, like that's his thing. And he had that song, whatever, 40's the new 30, 50's the new 40, 70's the new 20. Like, dude, it's okay. No one liked Jay-Z because he was young. That wasn't the thing that we liked. We liked him because he's a good rapper. And that's the same thing with Nas, and that's what he was able to recognize, Like I don't know if, Fetty Wap is going to be 50. Like he might have, a lot of his appeal was his youth and his vigor and his importance in that moment. You get lucky. You're lucky to get old. That's what I say every birthday. Speaking of Citizen Kane, old age is the only disease that no one wants to be cured of, which is true. Today is the youngest that you'll ever be, which is also true. But just these lyrics, once a man, twice a child, because when you're older, you're like a child, right? Like you have to be taken care of. From mama's boy to preschool to college to now employed, you got, now you got your first crib, she's having your firstborn, went from buying the finer toys with your boys to buying toys for your boy. It's crazy how fast he's going for sure. Grandpops, he told me about his days of old. One day I'll be on the porch sipping something cold. That's beautiful. Buying toys for your boy. And he's talking about the passage. He's doing something which Kendrick is doing as well, which I think Chance the Rapper also did a fair amount. He's really emphasizing the challenges and the role of black men in American families, in black American families. He is contradicting the narrative without explicitly saying that he is, of absentee fathers and absentee husbands or whatever, and he's just sort of putting this forward as like, he's really offering this other model, which I think is essential, and he's doing it even though the song itself is preachy. It's not preachy about that. It's preachy just about like, hey, we're all getting old. Nothing is promised. We're all going to die. He also makes reference to the pineal gland, which is where Descartes thought the soul was. Descartes, I think therefore I am guy. I have a couple Descartes books, but I'll leave them over there. He thought that the soul was located at a certain point in your brain. Next song is called Get Light. Beautiful song here. Like, do the ladies rock better? Do the fellas rock better? I think it might be DJ Cool. I'm not quite sure. Another like beat with saxophones. Again, Hit Boy's creating these like links between these songs with audio sounds, saxophones, kind of a summer. This song bugs me though because Nas, did you mean to drop this album in June? Did you mean to drop this album in June? Because this is a summer song. Fire Hydrant, Double Dutch. It snowed yesterday up here in Western New York. It snowed the day before. It's going to snow tomorrow and for the next 5 months. So this is a great summer jam, and with a summer chorus, but it's right before the winter. I don't know. Interesting line here where he says the sun doesn't know it's a star, and on the previous song he talked about how all the stars you see have already burned out. And he even makes reference to Party and BS, which is a song by Notorious B.I.G., which I believe also samples UFO, the song from earlier. All these nice little connections. Then we get to the song First Time. More reminiscing, totally yesterday's song, very kind of gauzy and light beat, nice piano here, a little bit weird, like the chorus is like just kind of chopped up and looped quicker with no drums, and this whole song is about the joy of music and the love of music. Do you remember the first time you heard Nas? I mean, I remember the first time I listened to Nas. I don't remember the first time I heard Nas, but it was listening to Jam in 94.5 in Boston, today's hottest hip-hop and R&B. And about twice an hour, they would play hip-hop and not R&B. And I believe I heard the song I Can. Is it I Can or I Am? Man, the Nazarites are going to be after me. I can be what I think it's I Can. I think that's what it is. Anyways, I remember first hearing that. I remember thinking it was a cool loop. I remember thinking it was well written. I remember thinking it was a good message. But like he's just going through like hip hop history. I remember the first time I heard Pac, I was like, that's crazy, Digital Underground song. First time I heard Biggie, I'm like, who is this kid? Oh, that was crazy. I just like it. I like it because it's the power of music. And the first song, he talks about how he wants to be loved by 60-year-olds and 16-year-olds. We'll see. I'm interested when I go to that concert, how many people will be under the age of 30 in the audience. I can't imagine there'll be many, but maybe it will be. Then we get to the song Beef, which is another kind of preachy song, very hard beat, strong drums, restrained bass at the end of each phrase. Pay attention to the way bass is used in the song. Some bells as well. There's like great tension that's added into the chorus, which I think reflects that. So this is a whole song from the position of beef, from beef itself. I'm a teacher, full-time French professor. I'd never stood in front of a classroom until the year 2000. So in the year 2000, in the fall of 2000, I was an English assistant in a French high school in Marseille, France, Lycée Saint-Charles. And I didn't know what to teach. And I asked the students before I did my first lesson, what do you like from America? And they all just screamed out, Tupac! So, all right. And I went out and I downloaded the lyrics to the song Dear Mama, because I knew that was a popular song. And I brought it, and the first lesson I've ever given in my entire life was to a group of French 15-year-olds on the song Dear Mama. And the first lyrics to Dear Mama are, when I was younger, me and my mama had beef. So the first question I was ever asked, and I was asked in all 5 classes that I taught this lesson in, someone raised their hand. Yes, Sky, what is as beef? What is beef? So it was very funny because I had to stop myself. I think maybe one of the 5 times I was like, well, beef is when you make your enemies start your Jeep. It's when you roll no less than 30 deep. It's basically when ICU, like guaranteed, or at least highly likely to be an ICU. I had to explain what beef was. And it was very fun because, like it's a particular word in English because they hear beef and they think of the word bœuf, which of course the word bœuf is only in the English language. Beef only exists in the English language because William the Conqueror conquered France in 1066, and all of the people who controlled England for a couple hundred years were French speakers. So a lot of the fancy language, like language of like law and military and food, were all French vocabulary. That's why we have the word cow for a cow, which is an English word from the Germanic source, and the word beef for beef, because that comes from the French word boeuf. So the French people were ironically asking me what beef is. And I like it because now, if I were teaching that class again, I'd be like, well, here's an explanation of beef. And this is one of these great things that Nas is able to do, where he's able to personify a concept, like he personified a gun at some point, he personified money at some point, and he does it like one step beyond where he needs to. Okay, so like, he could have just sort of like done it this way, but he sort of enlarges it. You know, I am the invasion of personal space, fake smiles on your face. It's certain I'm hate. I'm all that internet beef. I'm that ish, a virgin to me. I've been here before the Bible. It's murder I speak. See, when he says I've been here before the Bible, what I like is that he enlarges this, because beef is often considered to be a rap thing, when really there have been beefs for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, such as the beef between Nas and Jay-Z, which must be resolved. Hova, come out and play. Come on, let's do this. I mean, what? I'm going to have, 3,000 people view this video? If you 3,000 people tell 3,000 other people, this might happen. Then it ends with a reference to Tupac and Biggie. Wish you got it straightened out, but it's far too gone. From Who Shot You to Hit 'Em Up, the Tupac song. It just kind of this kind of bugs me because, like, you know, I don't think Biggie shot Tupac. I think Haitian Jack had that set up. If you read it, it makes a lot of sense. I don't think Biggie had anything to do with Tupac shooting. I think that was the Crips. I don't think Tupac's crew or Death Row had anything to do with Biggie's. I think that's the Crips again. I think the people who those people rapped about, the people who those people were trying to look like, did the things that they do, which is what they were trying to look like they do. They're entertainers. Biggie was an entertainer. Tupac was an entertainer. I don't care all the bona fides they had. Anyways. So in my opinion, you know, their beef wasn't violent. It wasn't. In my opinion, their beef wasn't violent. I don't think it had anything to do with why those two guys died. I think that we use it as a scapegoat because the truth is just too sad. The failure of the American government to... I'm not going to go into it. Anyways, I'm going to go into the song Don't Shoot, which I guess kind of follows up on the previous one there. Kind of a dirge-like quality to this song, like these chords going back and forth, a little bit of a beat change halfway through. I like a kind of yelling sound in the back. This is one of the songs where I don't like it that much. I don't love it. But like the more I paid attention to it, the more I realized like he actually drops into a triplet flow at a certain point. But it's not really a political song, you know. It's not like when I said "Don't Shoot," I thought it was going to be like "Cop Shot the Kid" Part 2, like "Stop Shooting Black Youths," but instead it's a song for black youths to black youths about not shooting other black youths. You know, don't shoot. You are him, and he is you. And again, this is a great message, and I think it would be great if people heard it. But I don't imagine that it's going to get to it. I love how he actually raps like Biggie in the second verse when he says, I endlessly speak of vengeance on MP3s, Percocet addiction, that could be your END. Just the way he delivers those lines, not the way I did it, the way he does it, is just absolutely Biggie-ish. Then the album ends with a bonus track. I don't usually cover bonus tracks, but this song, I hate to say it, but this might be my favorite song on the album, because it goes back to baseball. Bam! Sticks the ending. I made you think about Pedro Martinez. I did. I make you think about the Mets. This song is a sample of the song Narco that the relief pitcher for the New York Mets goes out to when he pitches, or that he used to. He's probably not going to be on their team next year. I'm from Boston, so the Mets could suck it. But it's a great walkout song. It's a beautiful walkout song. Like these weird trumpets and horns and kind of like trap beats. And this feels to me just like they're having fun. Like, let's just do a song with the thing. And this will speak, because, you know, if you don't know, the Mets play in Queens. So if you say, like, if we think about the great history of Queens versus the Bronx, the Yankees play in the Bronx. the Mets play in Queens. So like being a Mets fan is a signifier of where you're from. Yeah, I got across state lines. King's disease, going KD, going Trey 5. I'm starting for the Nets. Base to base, I might suit up for the Mets. YGs, OGs, I think this represents the Jets. The lyric sheet says Jets, like rejects, but I think he's saying Jets, which is a football team. But yeah, I like this, KD, who's a member of the Brooklyn Nets, and King's disease, it's actually a lot of restraint. I think this is the only time on the whole project that he ever makes that comparison. Please tell me in the comments other times that he does. And then he actually talks about the Mets directly. I like that. And then it sort of ends. I have this whole theory about Nas being sort of super Republican. I don't think he really is, but he makes some kind of Republican points, like about. Anyways, watch my previous reviews about that. But here he does sort of like, so much for the First Amendment. We can't say anything without offending. So now my mouth is in the jailhouse with cases pending. First Amendment, you replaced it, rigged it. It's all right. So you know, the First Amendment free speech is only guaranteed by the government, just so you know. So never ever bring up the First Amendment in relationship to a company. Unless the person who is stopping you from talking is a representative of the United States government, your First Amendment does not come into play. It just doesn't. You don't actually have freedom of speech in private society. Anyways, I didn't mean to piss off the Nasites at the end there. That last little jag, I'm there. But you know what? We love to hate each other, right? Did I not just talk very positively about this album for a whole hour? These are my Patreons. They gave me money, and I'm actually going to use some of the money they gave me to pay for those tickets I just got. By the way, Ticketmaster, get your shit together. I was on there for an hour trying to buy tickets, and I kept saying, "I'm sorry, it's our bad, it's our fault, not yours," with a little smiley face. Don't give me a smiley face. Just give me my tickets. Sell me my tickets. 4 times I got to the point of hitting purchase, like putting in the credit card number. And I said, "We failed, sorry." Anyways, I'm going. So thanks especially to At Large Auteur and Nicholas Palacios, who wanted to get a special shout out. If you're a member of my Patreon, I sometimes ask, "Hey, do you want a special shout out?" And you see At Large Auteur, he's up here. He's a rap artist of his own, makes his own stuff. So does Linus. He's up here, fancy guy. Yeah, but Nicholas Palacios, where is he? He's over here, isn't he? There he is. He's right there. I still give him a shout out. Join my Patreon. Smash the like bucket. Subscribe. All right, until next time. Until the great Jay-Z Nas debate with the same Premier Beats. There's the camera.